All right, good morning. So, in your light, I learned how to love. So October is when fall happens. So we're going to let the idea of the fall season be a symbol for us this month to fall in love with life. I just loved that whole thought process. So we're looking at the fullness and the allness of life itself and all that that means. And the idea for the monthly theme of falling in love with life naturally brings to mind the Sufi mystic Rumi. And I'm not an aficionado on Rumi, but I do love his poems so much. And he's written volumes on the topic of love. So I decided that each week we're going to pull from his writings as a way to inspire us. But before we look at Rumi's inspiration today, I want to share with you a few thoughts from the book that Neale Donald Walsch wrote that addresses our monthly theme. And here's what he wrote. He said, "Life was meant to be happy." Do you believe that? It's true. I know it doesn't seem like it when you look around, but it's true. Life was meant to be happy. You were meant to be happy. And if you are happy, you are meant to be even happier. Even if you are very happy, you can be even happier. How happy? Just how happy can you be? Well, you can be happier than God. I once heard a lady describing a gentleman who was very wealthy. She said, he's got more money than God. That's how I mean this. I mean to use the ultimate superlative. And by the way, the title of the book is Happier Than God. And I want to read one more passage from that. Many people believe that life was meant to have a lot of pain in it. Suffering should be offered up to God. It earns you points in heaven. Our culture has so completely adopted this idea that some people don't want to be happy all the time. When you talk about how you can be happier than God, they become fidgety and uncomfortable. They warn that you are being unrealistic or blasphemous. They will tell you that life was meant to be unhappy. Life is a trial. It's a school of hard knocks. No pain, no gain, and all that. People in large numbers believe this. When you say to them that life was never meant to be unhappy, that no one has to be unhappy ever, they look at you cross-eyed. They don't know what to do with that. They don't know where to go with it. Often they'll tell you where to go with it. So in New Thought, we would call that race consciousness or the collective unconscious, right? And you don't have to buy into that. We know that. We can make a different choice. We can rise above the collective belief of the humankind and instead buy into the idea that you are meant to be outrageously, deliriously, ecstatically happy. Or in the language of the month, you are meant to fall madly in love with life and to have a lifetime love affair. Walsh suggests that the idea should be shouted from every rooftop, pulpit, and lectern. He writes, "Let the word go forth from this time and place. Happiness is your natural state of being, and you can occupy that space all of the time. You never have to be unhappy again. This does not mean that you'll never be sad again, but sadness and unhappiness are not the same thing." So, am I happy all of the time? Is Walsh happy all of the time? Nope. But I am, and he is happier more of the time than we used to be. Is that true? Are we happier more of the time than we used to be? Yes, absolutely. Is it possible to be happy all of the time? Yep, it is. And the question gets to the basic truth that will determine our ability to fall in love with and stay in love with life. The basic truth is this: life is meant to be happy. So do you believe that? Do you believe that life is meant to be happy? Because if you don't, then life will have no choice but to play itself out according to your belief, and you won't love life. But if you believe that life was meant to be happy, it will be. So let's start truly installing that belief by lifting our chins up, right? Okay, raising our arms, the power position. Who remembers the power position? And saying, life is meant to be happy. Life is meant to be happy. Okay. Let's do that with more gusto. Let's stand up and say that again. Power position. Just don't hit anybody, okay? And life is meant to be happy. And let's add, it is my divine right to fall in love with life. It is my divine right to fall in love with life. Nice. Now you can be seated. All right. Everybody awake? All right. So let's get to our topic for this morning, which is, in your light, I learn how to love. Those are Rumi's words from this poem. He writes, in your light, I learn how to love. In your beauty, how to make poems. You dance inside my chest where no one sees you. But sometimes I do, and that sight becomes this art. Many of Rumi's poems were directed to the ultimate beloved, to God. And this one certainly is. And the premise for today, based on this poem, is foundational to falling in love and staying in love with life. It's the idea that in God's light, we connect with the eternal flame of love, divine love that rests at the core of our being. It is the idea that in God's beauty, we create lives that we love. It's the idea that God does in fact dance inside our chests where no one sees. But in those moments when we do, when we catch just a glimpse of it, when we recognize it, that is when we do our greatest work and love life the most. So, isn't that beautiful? That is so touching. When we return to a basic new thought tenet here, the one we talk about all the time, but one that we can't repeat enough, it is the spiritual truth that God's ever-present reality is in, through, as, and all things. And in many religious paths, they tell us that God is the all in all, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. God is everywhere, and God is made manifest in everything. And if this is true, then there cannot be a place where God is not. There is nowhere where God is not. Or as Dr. Seuss might say, there's no spot where God is not. Right? In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up a stone, and you will find me there. And many people believe that God is everywhere, but they do not believe that God resides inside of them. They may say this out of humility, but think about it. It's actually somewhat arrogant to imagine that God exists everywhere in the universe except in you. That would make your body, your mind, your soul some pretty darned exclusive real estate, wouldn't it? If we accept that God is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the all in all, then we must necessarily conclude that God exists as us as well. The German mystic and late 1200 Meister Eckhart said, God is nearer to me than I am to my own self. My life depends upon God's being near me. He is also present in stone or a log of wood, only they do not know it. So many of us have not known it either. We've lived with a case of mistaken identity. And many still live with that. We think that we're separate from God, but this is not true. The truth is that God and I are one, or as Reverend Sandy, who was here last week, said, told me in class, she says, shouldn't it be, if we're one, shouldn't it be God and I is one? Because our means like there's two. God and I is one. But now it's sounding like the movie The Help. Anyway, no, I just go back to that. You was kind. You was smart.
He was beautiful.
You was beautiful. What a beautiful thing to say to a child. And in the movie we saw on Friday night, they were saying how in the first 7 years of a child's life, everything is downloaded. So what are we telling our children those first 7 years? And what are we telling ourselves now as we release what we may have downloaded that no longer serves us? Because we create a vacuum when you release something, right? So we want to go back to that. So God and I are one. And this means that I am what God is, and God is what I am. So let's say that. And I'm not going to have you stand, but let's one more time with the power position. I am what God is, and God is what I am. Let's do that one more time, a little louder. I am what God is, and God is what I am. That's so true. And this truly means that I have been made in the image and likeness of God. Each and every one of us is made in the image and likeness of God. It's all God stuff. If everything's made out of God, what could we be made out of that could be different? So this is the key. This is how we fall in love with life. We realize that what is within us is greater than anything that is outside of us, greater than our surroundings. So let's say that. What is within me is greater than anything in my surroundings. We realize that what is within us is more powerful than any circumstance in our life. What is within us is more powerful than anything, any circumstance that could be being presented in our life. So let's say that. What is within me is more powerful
What is within me is more powerful
than any circumstance in my life. We realize that what is within us is infinitely superior to our history, our upbringing, our failures, our obstacles, and our challenges. So let's say this. What is within me is infinitely superior. What is within me is infinitely superior to my history, my upbringing, my failures, my obstacles, and my challenges. What is within you is greater because it is pure light, pure love, pure beauty, pure potential. We look at our lives and are unhappy because we think we need love. But how can we need love when we are love? How could we need it when we are that? We bemoan our fate because our checkbook is barer than we would like, and we think we need abundance. But how can we need abundance when we are abundance? We cry out for compassion, understanding, and kindness, forgetting that we are compassion, understanding, and kindness. Now those are ideas that I could fall in love with, because when we come from that place, there is no lack. There is no limitation. We may not always experience that we are these things, especially if we're living from a case of mistaken identity. Yet the fastest way to experience that you are these things is to start being these things. We have to begin at the place we wish to be. And you can do it in whatever way, big or small, that you can. Starting when? When do we start this?
Now.
Right now. Do not wait until you get it right. Do not wait until you lose weight, get the degree, find the right job, or meet your soulmate. Don't wait until the conditions are ideal or the stars are aligned. Now is the time to fall in love with life by realizing, to paraphrase Rumi, in God's light, you learn how to love. In God's beauty, you make poems. God dances inside your chest where no one sees, but sometimes you do. And let that sometime be right now. And that sight become this art, and that art becomes your life right now. This is a simple message this morning, yet it's very profound and life-changing if we grasp and begin to live it. I want to leave you with a story written by Ann Wells that was published in the Los Angeles Times some time ago, and I know it's been on the internet, so you have probably heard it, but again, this fits perfectly. My brother-in-law opened the bottom drawer of my sister's bureau and lifted out a tissue-wrapped package. This, he said, is not a slip. This is lingerie. He discarded the tissue and handed me the slip. It was exquisite. Silk, handmade, and trimmed with a cobweb of lace. The price tag had an astronomical figure on it, and it was still attached. Jan bought this the first time we went to New York, at least 8 or 9 years ago. She never wore it. She was saving it for a special occasion. Well, I guess this is the occasion. He took the slip out and put it on the bed with the other clothes that we were taking to the mortician. His hands lingered on the soft material for a moment, and then he slammed the drawer shut and turned to me and said, "Don't ever save anything for a special occasion. Every day you're alive is a special occasion." I remembered those words through the funeral and the days that followed as I helped him and my niece attend to all of the sad chores that follow an unexpected death. I thought about them on the plane as I returned to California from my Midwestern town where my sister's family lives. I thought about all the things that she hadn't seen or heard or done. I thought about the things she had done without realizing that they were special. And I'm still thinking about his words, and they've changed my life. I'm reading more, and I'm dusting less. I'm sitting on the deck and admiring the view without fussing about the weeds in the garden. I'm spending more time with my family and friends. Whenever possible, life can be, should be. a pattern of experiences to savor, not endure. I'm trying to recognize those moments now and cherish them. I'm not saving anything. We use our good china and crystal for every special event, like losing a pound, or getting the sink unstopped, or the first camellia blossom. And I wear my good blazer to the market now. I'm not saving my good perfume for special parties. Clerks in the hardware stores and tellers in banks have noses that function quite well. Someday, and one of these days, are losing their grip on my vocabulary. If it's worth seeing or hearing or doing, I want to see and hear and do it now. I'm not sure what my sister would have done if she'd known that she wouldn't be here for the tomorrow that we all take for granted. I think she would have called her family members and maybe a few close friends. She might have called a few former friends to apologize and mend the fences over past squabbles. I'd like to think that she would have gone out for a Chinese dinner, her favorite food. I'm guessing. I'll never know. It's those little things left undone that would make me angry if I knew that my hours were limited. Angry because I put off seeing good friends whom I was going to get in touch with someday. Angry because I hadn't written certain letters that I intended to write one of these days. Angry and sorry that I didn't tell my husband and daughter often enough how much I truly love them. I'm trying very hard not to put off, hold back, or save anything that would add laughter and luster to our lives. It would make me angry if I knew my hours are limited, but when I'm honest, I know my hours are limited. And so, now I'm practicing. Every morning when I open my eyes, I tell myself, this is special. Every minute, every day, every breath, truly a gift from God. Yes, life is truly a gift from God. So how about honoring this infinite source of all good by falling in love with it? Because truly in God's light, we can learn how to love and learn how to live. And so it is.